two men who once worked for former Mayor Ed Koch, whose current interests and passions, though totally different, somehow trace back to those early days in politics. The Point starts right now. Sam Schwartz served as traffic commissioner under former Mayor Ed Koch and has studied traffic congestion for, I got to say this, over 40 years. You might say he's the grandfather of congestion pricing, and I think it's probably true, but I want to ask you this question. You have been a proponent of congestion pricing since I was 12, I think, but whatever. But many people think it's just a money grab and that it's not going to solve congestion. I wonder what you think about it and what your answer to the critics is.
You know, for the most part, congestion pricing, when it was tried elsewhere, reduced traffic about 15 to 20%. And that is what the MTA is estimating. Yes, it is a money grab in the sense that it has to raise $1 billion a year net for the MTA to issue bonds of $15 billion. That was set in the legislation. The legislation doesn't say you have to reduce congestion a certain amount. So I'm not surprised people are making that claim. But we will see a reduction in traffic as well.
But some people would argue that New York streets are different than other places like London and Singapore that have tried congestion pricing because we have this new influx of delivery trucks, people getting, you know, Amazon deliveries and food deliveries and things like that. Plus, you know, we have bike lanes now, and we have outdoor dining sheds that are taking up space, all kinds of things that are claiming space on the streets, and people think it's not going to change congestion because you've got all these other things that are vying for space and it's going to be just as bad. What do you say to them?
You know, that's the reason we need congestion pricing. Traffic volumes are up to pre-pandemic levels. Truck volumes, as you point out, are a good 10 to 15% above pre-pandemic levels. And therefore, we have a lot of congestion. If we could reduce the congestion, truckers can get through more quickly, taxis can get through more quickly, and we could have a better functioning city.
But here's the question. What's the likelihood that the fact that there's lower fees for trucks and everybody else to come in at night after, say, 9 o'clock, what's the likelihood that some of these companies will say, okay, do night deliveries because it'll be so much cheaper in terms of congestion fees?
Well, I think that's one of the goals of the program is to have truckers. But is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? What I had proposed to the MTA, there's a lot of things that I'd like to see changed in the plan. But,
like what?
Well, one thing is for a trucker that gets out by 6 a.m., because they're measuring people not only coming in, but coming out. If they're gone by 6 a.m., lower the fee to next to nothing. We've been trying truck deliveries at night for more than 50 years, and we haven't succeeded in it. There is a way to do that. So there are a number of strategies that could be used. We have to get it in and then improve it.
But see, there's all kinds of deliveries. You know, there are stores that get deliveries of goods that are going to be for sale. And then there are people who want their FedEx deliveries and their UPS deliveries and their Amazon deliveries. So does it make sense for all of those people to do their deliveries at night?
No, that one of the problems with deliveries at night is many mom-and-pop stores are only open during the day, and we were never able to get them to agree to nighttime deliveries. So it's not perfect for nighttime deliveries, but there are a lot of places where they do have staff available at night, and those deliveries could happen. Part of the problem, Marcia, is we've gotten lazy. We think, as New Yorkers, we all have room service 24 hours a day, and we could just call, and we go on these apps, and they will deliver for 5 miles. You can get Peter Luger's in Midtown Manhattan now. That's crazy. We should have a fee based on distance for truckers, for bike riders, for delivery people.
So you're saying that delivery people who are coming into the Central Business District should also be paying some kind of a fee based on distance?
I'm saying the public should pay. When I go on an app and I see that that delivery place is 5 miles away from me, I should have to pay for those 5 miles.
I feel that people are going to be writing into the show and screaming at you even before you leave the studio. But let me talk about something else. Residential parking permits. You have a situation where people are concerned that people are going to park above the congestion zone of 60th Street and find parking and take away parking from the people who actually live there. How do you feel about issuing residential parking permits so that people can actually find parking in their own neighborhoods?
In the 1980s, when I was traffic commissioner, it became a racial issue. White neighborhoods did not want black people driving and parking their cars in their neighborhood. So I was against residential parking permits. This image that people will fight the traffic all the way down to 61st Street.
But they don't have to. They could be in Washington Heights. They could be around 96th Street, wherever there's a subway, 125th Street, 96th Street, 72nd Street. They could park all around those areas, and not on the and in Queens and in Brooklyn too, on the other sides of the bridges. So why wouldn't we do that?
Many people do that. That's called park and ride. And park and ride doesn't occur right at the very edge.
So should we have residential parking to protect the people who actually live there?
You know why I want residential parking?
Why?
Because people have phony plates. I went online and I got a Vietnam vet plate from the state of Mississippi for less than $20. It's good for all of 2024. I'm not going to use it, of course, but I just wanted to test the system. You walk Midtown streets, you walk any streets in New York, and you will find cars registered to faraway states. You'll find paper plates. You'll find even cars without plates.
The other thing is people are concerned about price gouging of garages that are going to be located above 60th Street so that people could park there and then get into the zone. Do you think that the city should do something to make sure there's no price gouging?
There's price gouging of garages in the heart of Midtown today. Garage owners practice congestion pricing, and they do surge pricing. And guess what, Marcia? In 1980, when I tried to do a form of congestion pricing, I was sued by the garage operators, even though they practice it.
So another contentious issue, which is going to go to court next month, has to do with whether city employees who work in the congestion zone should get an exemption. Where do you come down on that?
Absolutely not.
Why?
I was a city worker for 20 years. Why should the city worker get an exemption, but the person that works in the pharmacy, the person that works in the clothing store, the person that works in a bodega doesn't get an exemption? Why a city worker?
But wait a second. You're talking about all of these people who feel that they're going to be robbed in the pocketbook by having to pay this big congestion fee. So, is there going to be pressure on all kinds of employers, not just city employees, but the private employers, to try to reimburse their workers for the cost of driving to their businesses that happen to be in the congestion zone?
First of all, when you look at low-income New Yorkers, there's about a 50-to-1 ratio in terms of low-income, working, poor who benefit from this. That's from the Community Service Society that represents low-income New Yorkers. When we talk about city workers, we're talking about middle class. I was a city worker for 20 years. And if you drive in and you have free parking as well, that parking should be taxable. So I don't see any excuse for a city worker not to take public transportation. Recently I counted how many different transit options do people have to come to the CBD. It's over 200. 53 rail options.
Yeah, but there's all kinds of
bus.
transit deserts too. You know that.
Yeah, and some people will drive, and 85% of the people in every city that had congestion pricing continued to drive. And in fact, they preferred it because there were fewer people on the road. That difference of 15% could make a big difference in terms of the speed of traffic and the frustration that we all experience, especially when we hear sirens and emergency vehicles that can't move in traffic.
So look into your crystal ball in 30 seconds or less. Tell me what the streets of New York City are going to look like a year from now if congestion pricing goes into effect in June.
We're not going to see any speed traps set up. We're not going to move that fast. It'll be like turning back the clocks to pre-Uber, pre-Lyft days. Traffic will move much better at speeds of 7 miles an hour in Midtown. They're at 5 miles an hour in Midtown now. 9 miles an hour in the Central Business District. They're at 7 miles an hour. It's better, but we'll still be a pretty busy city.
And on that note, we're going to have to leave it right there for now. But our conversation continues right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York.